Revealed, the heartwarming message that transformed my life after 10 years of family struggles. Sarah Johnson stood at the kitchen sink, her hands submerged in soapy water, while her heart felt like it was about to break. Just days away from the eviction notice, the weight of her world seemed heavier than ever. With 2 kids depending on her, the whispers from town echoed louder each day. What would they say? Another failure. Timid Sarah, can't hold down a job. And then, of course, there was her father, a proud war veteran, whose disdain for weakness loomed like a storm cloud over her life, judgment shaped like his love. But that night at the community center, surrounded by familiar faces, everything changed. They gathered to discuss a looming economic crisis that threatened to snuff out the town's spirit. As she looked around, Sarah noticed the exhaustion in the eyes of others. Each had a story, just like hers: single parents, underpaid workers, vibrant dreams slowly wilting under the weight of bills piled high. And in that moment it hit her. She wasn't alone. It wasn't just her fight, it was theirs too. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With a determined heart, Sarah devised a plan. She spoke up, rallying her neighbors to unite. If we can pool our resources, support each other, we can lift each other up. The words flowed out like a dam bursting, and for the first time in a long time, a surge of hope flickered within her. As the weeks passed, she worked tirelessly, putting up flyers, organizing meetings, and encouraging everyone to share their struggles. But skepticism loomed heavy in the air. Wasn't she just a single mom, barely scraping by herself? Each taunt stung, but she pushed through, determined to prove that resilience was stronger than judgment. Yet, deep down, she could feel her father's disappointment from a distance, a specter haunting every decision she made. Then, a heartwarming moment presented itself. During community dinners filled with laughter and shared dishes, a woman approached Sarah, teary-eyed. "You've changed everything for my family. Thank you." For the first time, she felt seen, recognized. Those expressions, that gratitude, it was the validation she had been silently craving. But just as Sarah thought things were getting back on track, her father stepped into the town meeting. The collective gasp was palpable. A silence settled over the crowd as he raised his hand. Time seemed to freeze, and she found it hard to breathe. Would he understand? Could he see the fight in her eyes, the sacrifices made for her children? As they locked eyes, uncertainty washed over her. The tension in the room thickened, and questions hung heavy in the air. Could they really bridge the gap between them? Would the burden of historical expectations still chain them to despair? In that vulnerable moment, everything felt like it was about to shift, but then an announcement broke the atmosphere, sending the community into chaos. Stranded between her newfound strength and the risk of losing everything again, Sarah felt a sudden chill. What would come next? Hope flickered, but shadows of doubt loomed large. Time seemed to stretch and bend after the announcement shattered the gathering. The room erupted into murmurs, people exchanged concerned glances, and the atmosphere shifted from hopeful determination to frantic uncertainty. Sarah's heart raced. She felt as if the very ground beneath her was crumbling. What had her father come to say? Would it be another reminder of her failures or something that could spark reconciliation? The mayor, visibly shaken, attempted to calm the crowd. "Everyone, please. We need to refocus. This meeting is about our community, not just individual grievances." His voice, though authoritative, barely pierced the veil of anguish wrapping around Sarah. No one was listening. They were all lost in their own thoughts, minds racing with the implications of the news. Her gaze flitted to her father, who stood there, strong but conflicted. She could see the internal battle waging behind his steely blue eyes. Was he there to confront her or to offer support? Breaths came shallow and fast as Sarah fought the urge to flee, To hide from those searching eyes and the possible judgment they housed, feeling a hand on her shoulder broke her concentration. It was Lydia, a single parent vibrant with energy, who had been one of the first to join Sarah's calls for community unity. "Don't back down, Sarah," she whispered. "You've built something here. Don't let fear take it away." Her words were a lifeline amid the rising tide of anxiety. Swallowing hard, Sarah took a step forward again. "Together we can face any challenge," she called out, her voice louder now, almost a declaration. "This is our town, our home. We've supported each other, and that strength is what will see us through any storms." It felt empowering to speak, to share the fire that had ignited within her. But then she glimpsed her father again, his expression so neutral that it made her insides twist. Did he agree with her message, or did he see it as naivete? Doubts crept in, gnawing at her newfound courage as heads turned towards him, seeking his reaction. "All of this talk of community," he finally said, cutting through the murmurings, his voice gravelly and authoritative. "But what are we actually doing about it? Words can't replace action." The room fell slacker in tension, as all eyes darted between Sarah and her father. A part of her bristled at the challenge in his tone. Action. She had been taking action, she had brought everyone together. But the unspoken challenge pushed her to reevaluate her approach. Before she could respond, a tall man from the back shouted, "We need a plan. How can we really make this work?" There was a chorus of agreement from the crowd, and suddenly, what had felt so daunting began to feel invigorating. This was the turning point. Sarah scanned the faces around her. Determination sparked anew in her heart. "Let us create a community fund. We can gather resources, offer support for those struggling like us. Together, we can be the change." The words flowed like water, bursting forth from an unseen reservoir. Cheers erupted, voices mingled in support, and in that electrifying moment, Sarah felt the shadows begin to lift. Her father was still there, a steady presence, but the warmth of the community was embracing her like a shield. But as excitement surged, Sarah noticed her father's expression had shifted. There was something akin to pride flickering in his eyes, yet the weight of his unvoiced expectations was still palpable. She had ignited something in the crowd, but would he accept it? Just then, a woman, distraught and trembling, rushed forward. "I can't go on like this. My family needs help now." The urgency in her voice pulled at Sarah's heartstrings. The moment felt like a gut punch. The fear, the pain she had fought against, it was all surfacing again, raw and unfiltered. With one look at her father's restrained face, she realized the battle was far from over. The stakes were higher than ever. How would they bridge their past with this hope? What if this was just the beginning of even greater challenges ahead? As Sarah steadied herself, she knew the road ahead would not be easy, but she was ready to tackle this with her community. The winds of change had begun to blow, but would the whispers of doubt drown them out? The resolve in her heart was alive, but shadows lurked, ready to challenge her spirit yet again. The question loomed large in her mind: could they really create the future they all dreamed of, despite the past still casting its long shadow? As Sarah stood frozen, the weight of the woman's plea echoed in her ears. The faces in the crowd mirrored similar emotions: concern, fear, yet also a flicker of hope. It was as if they were all holding their breath, waiting for her next move, waiting to see how she would respond to the urgent call for help. The reality of their collective struggle washed over her like a wave. The worries, the financial strain, the overwhelming vulnerability, they were all too familiar. Sarah's heart pounded harder, the adrenaline fueling a flicker of inspiration in her chest. She stepped closer to the woman, forcing her voice to break through the knot in her throat. "Together, we can get through this," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the tremors beneath. "If we all come together, share our resources and our strengths, we can create a safety net. We won't stand alone in this. We'll find the help you need." She felt the energy in the room shift again, a unity building amidst the uncertainty. A man from the back raised his hand, a spark igniting in his eyes. "I own a local business. We could set up a fundraiser. I'll donate the first $2,000. "Yes." Another voice chimed in, "And we can host a community dinner. Everyone can pitch in. Ambition swelled like a tide, washing over their doubts. Ideas flew back and forth like a lively conversation, excitement igniting a fire beneath their collective spirit. Sarah could hardly believe how quickly they were mobilizing, and yet, it all felt right. This was the action her father had challenged her to embrace. In the midst of it all, Sarah glanced back at her father. His stoic demeanor didn't reveal much, but his eyes, those blue eyes, seemed to flicker with understanding. Maybe, just maybe, he recognized the strength in her, in them. It was a small light of hope, but it was enough to keep her moving forward. Let us set a date for the fundraiser and start organizing right away. Sarah raised her voice above the growing excitement, rallying her community. As she spoke, she realized that what was happening in that very room was exactly what she envisioned, a true manifestation of unity. Everyone was on board now, ready to help their neighbors, but the woman's face suddenly changed, shadowed by a new wave of panic. But what if it's not enough? What if we can't pay our bills this month? I don't know how I'm going to feed my kids. Her voice trembled, each word a raw reminder of the stakes they were dealing with. In that moment, the collective joy mixed with shadows of worry, revealing the obstacles they still had to face. Sarah's heart ached for her. "We'll figure it out, I promise," she said, stepping even closer, looking into the eyes of the woman that reminded her so much of her own mother during dark times. "We'll find a way. You're not alone in this anymore." As the room buzzed with plans and volunteers stepped forward, a sudden unease crept back into Sarah's heart. She knew her father would have to engage more actively now. His past shadows still loomed, waiting to be confronted head-on. But could they rise together, or would their separate histories pull them apart once again? With renewed determination, Sarah turned back to the crowd, ready to embrace the challenges ahead. "Let us bring this community together. It's time to face our fears, but we do it as one." She felt a chorus of voices ignite around her, a swell of support that fueled her soul. Yet she could not shake the feeling that the real battle was just beginning, lurking, waiting. Would the vulnerability of sharing their lives bring them closer or threaten to tear them apart? And then, amidst the cacophony of energy, Sarah felt her father's hand on her shoulder, a gesture of solidarity. But would it be enough to bridge the growing divide between their hopes and the shadows of the past? As the atmosphere buzzed with possibility, one question bubbled to the surface: would they truly have the strength to confront what lay ahead, together or apart? The moment Sarah felt her father's hand on her shoulder, a wave of comfort washed over her. She turned to him, searching his face for reassurance. But the weight of his uncertain expression reminded her of all the things left unsaid between them. There was history there, a history of decisions that haunted him and a daughter grappling with the consequences. "Dad, I need you," she whispered, struggling to keep her voice steady. He squeezed her shoulder and nodded, but she knew there was more beneath the surface, a storm waiting for permission to break. As the crowd buzzed with excitement, she decided to focus on the task at hand. "Let us break into groups to organize our ideas. We need to plan the fundraiser, gather supplies for the dinner, and reach out to the local press." She felt a fire building among them, each person contributing their own vision for hope. They divided into small clusters, throwing around ideas like confetti posters that would promote the event, methods to reach out to local businesses, contributions of food for the community dinner. Laughter punctuated their discussions, yet an undercurrent of anxiety rippled through the air, a reminder of why they were all gathered. In a corner, Sarah noticed the woman who had sparked the movement in the first place. Her hands were trembling as she clutched a worn-out notebook. The worry etched across her brow was palpable. Sarah approached her gently. "How can we help you right now?" The woman's eyes filled with tears, and she shook her head slowly. I don't want my kids to suffer because of my mistakes. I should have been better prepared." "Hey, it's okay," Sarah said softly, placing a comforting hand on her arm. "We're all here for you. We want to let your worries become your reality." But as she spoke, Sarah felt the gravity of their situation deepen. What if their plans fell through? What if the funds didn't flow in fast enough? She spotted her father across the room, engaged in a quiet conversation with a few older men. He looked so resolute, yet she could see the flickers of doubt behind his strong facade. Suddenly, someone shouted from the back, pulling Sarah from her thoughts. Let us start a social media campaign. Use the hashtag #WeAreStrong. The crowd erupted in enthusiasm, and Sarah seized the moment. Yes. That's a great idea. Let us mobilize everyone we can. Their chatter swelled like waves, ideas crashing into others, growing louder. Sarah's pulse raced with determination. They were committed now. As the crowd began to disperse into their groups, Sarah took a moment to gather her thoughts. She watched as the woman began to smile, courage swelling in her heart. But beneath it all, a gnawing concern gripped Sarah. Could this be enough? With her father still out of reach, Sarah felt the burden of leadership settle heavily on her shoulders. She didn't want to let anyone down, least of all the woman who needed help now more than ever. Her eyes darted back to her father, feeling an undeniable urge to bring him closer into the fold. She strode towards him, determination hardening her resolve. Dad, we need your voice in this. You have connections. You can bring more to the table. As she reached him, she could feel the eyes of the crowd around them, the sense of expectation hanging in the air. Would he answer the call or retreat into his shell? Would they finally work together to face the truth that haunted them both? She could feel the pull of hope, the realization that, if they were ever going to change, they had to confront these shadows. When Sarah looked back at the crowd, the faces of her community relaxed slightly, but the path ahead felt intimidating. They were ready to fight, but would the struggle bring them together, or would it tear them apart? Turning to her father, she took a sharp breath, ready to bridge the gap between their worlds. But his expression shifted as he hesitated, and she wondered if it was too late for them. As she met his gaze, her heart raced. Would trusting him lead them both to a resolution, or would the past catch up with them when they needed it least? Sarah felt the tension in the air, thick and almost suffocating. That single moment stretched forever as her father looked down, deep in thought. The crowd buzzed around them, their voices melding into a hopeful hum, but all she could focus on was the uncertainty etched on his face. Dad, she prompted gently, searching for words that might reach him. She wanted him to feel her urgency, her need for him to be there. This isn't just about the fundraiser. It's about our family, about rebuilding trust. He finally met her gaze, his eyes reflecting a mix of regret and longing. I know, I just don't want to let you down again. For a heartbeat, her heart fluttered, not out of fear but a flicker of understanding between them. You won't. Not if we do this together. As they talked, memories flooded back. Cookouts in the backyard, summer evenings with laughter echoing in the air. That was before life got complicated, before mistakes and silence filled the space where connection had once thrived. Around them, the momentum of the meeting surged. People brightened with ideas, enthusiasm bubbling over. Someone proposed a bake sale, another suggested a community yard sale. Each idea sparked excitement, and as the plans unfolded, Sarah felt her own hopes begin to swell. Yet, doubt crawled back into her mind. Would they really make a difference? She scanned the room, her heart warming at the sight of her community. Still, a nagging voice whispered, what if it wasn't enough? But then she caught sight of the woman once again. Now, instead of trembling with fear, she was speaking excitedly with a small group, her worries slowly fading with each shared idea. See? Sarah said to her father, pointing. When we come together, we can create real change. Your voice matters. They need you. But he remained silent, a mask of contemplation shading his features. Sarah's frustration flared up. Come on, Dad. We can no longer stay silent. We need to be brave for them, for all of us. It was as if her words finally broke through some invisible barrier. He sighed, shoulders sinking slightly as if the burden of his reluctance had grown too heavy to bear. Okay, I'll help. Just give me a moment. He moved towards the table where supplies were laid out, beginning to share ideas and experiences with the others. She felt a thrill of triumph ripple through her. As they settled back into the planning, laughter spread, filling the room with a sense of unity. For the first time, Sarah felt a shimmer of hope that perhaps everything would turn out all right. They were no longer ghosts drifting apart. She and her father were rising together to face the storm, but just as the excitement reached a peak, the door swung open loudly, interrupting the camaraderie. A figure stood on the threshold, someone dark and familiar. It was a face Sarah had hoped never to see again. Sarah. The voice was sharp, slicing through the warmth in the room. Her heart dropped as she was frozen in place, astonished. The warmth of their community meeting brimming with hope and plans drained away, replaced by a chill. "Why are you here?" she murmured, confusion and dread swirling in her stomach. Would this unexpected arrival snatch away the brittle strength they had built? Would old wounds rip open, right when the promise of healing began to shine? The tension that filled the room became palpable, almost suffocating. As Sarah blinked, trying to comprehend the shocking nature of the interruption, her father turned sharply, his expression shifting from hope to something darker, something strained. The woman at the door stepped in, her presence seeming to cast a long shadow over the gathering. "Don't you dare act like you've forgotten me," she said, her voice level but heavy with bitterness. Sarah felt the room swirl around her, the echoes of community voices dissolving into a silence that felt like an avalanche waiting to crash. Every heartbeat thudded in her ears as she tried to place the woman's face that deeply etched line of familiarity and history. "Jessica," her father finally said, his voice betraying a mixture of surprise and disappointment. He had hoped to leave that past behind. "Yes, it's me. Did you really think I wouldn't show up?" Jessica's eyes scrutinized him, fierce and unyielding. "You've made a nice little life for yourself here while ignoring everything we went through. But I'm not going anywhere." Sarah could feel the collective tension of the room. Whispers and furtive glances flicked around, uncertain how to react to the drama unfolding. "What do you want?" Sarah asked, her voice steadier than she felt. She didn't want Jessica's toxicity to infect the fragile light that had flared in the meeting. "The truth," she replied sharply, taking a step closer. "You think this fundraiser will make everything right? You think you can just waltz back into their lives like you're some kind of hero? Enough." Her father cut in, his voice rising with sudden authority. He stepped toward Jessica, a protective stance unfolding. "You don't know what we're trying to do here. We've all made mistakes, but we're moving forward." "Forward? You think you can shipwreck the past and set sail again?" Jessica retorted, her hands on her hips. "You hurt people, and pretending to be someone you're not doesn't change that." It was like a rock thrown into still water, creating ripples that disturbed the fragile harmony of the group. Murmurs of discomfort filled the room, with some people retreating and others stepping forward in curiosity. "Maybe you're right," Sarah interjected, taking a courageous step toward Jessica. "But healing doesn't come from denial. It's about facing what we've done and working through it together. You're here, and you're still part of this story." For a brief moment, confusion flickered in Jessica's eyes. Sarah could see the cracks forming in her armor, the subtle hints of vulnerability beneath the tough exterior. "You think your little community can heal the wounds?" "Maybe it starts with understanding," Sarah answered, her heart racing. "Maybe it's not about erasing the past but learning how to live with it." The crowd leaned in, intrigued. Jessica's posture shifted. It was subtle, but Sarah felt it. The tension shifted ever so slightly from hostility to tentative curiosity. It was a moment of connection, a snappy realization that disarmed animosity, and then, silence filled the air once again. It felt electric, both terrifying and hopeful. But just as the fragile moment threatened to expand, Sarah heard Jessica grasping for words, her expression caught between anger and something softer. "Maybe," Jessica started, her voice cracking, "maybe I am angry for a reason. Maybe I never really healed." As the room absorbed the raw honesty, Sarah's heart beat faster. Could this be the moment of transformation they all needed? Would Jessica allow herself to step back into the circle, to become part of the healing process? There was no simple answer, and as Sarah looked at her father, whose face held a mixture of pride and dread, she realized that this was just the beginning of a more significant challenge. The door to vulnerability had cracked open, but who would step through? "Someone has to start the conversation," Sarah whispered, her resolve strengthening. Would it be her? Would it be Jessica? The possibilities hung heavy in the air, each heartbeat echoing the weight of what was to come. The silence was deafening, an unbearable weight that settled over the gathering like a thick fog. Sarah held her breath, unsure of what to do next. This moment hummed with potential like a coiled spring ready to unleash. Jessica's declaration hung there, raw and aching, amid a sea of uncertainty. Suddenly, Sarah's father stepped forward again, his brow furrowed with contemplation. "Jessica," he began, his voice gentler this time, almost coaxing. "It's been a long time. We've all changed, and we're trying to do better. Can't you see that? And what, exactly, does that look like?" Jessica shot back, fire still lingering in her tone. But there was a crack in her composure, a glimpse of the hurt woman behind the fierce facade. Little by little, Sarah sensed the town behind them inching forward, desperate to find common ground in this familial tempest. "We are trying to rebuild," Sarah spoke up with renewed conviction. "We're bringing awareness to our mistakes. My father isn't that man anymore, and neither is this community. We want a chance to understand, to make it right." Jessica glanced at the crowd, her eyes scanning faces filled with nervousness and support. Here were the same people who once turned away now looking back, ready to embrace transformation. But Jessica's defenses were still up, her heart still wrapped in years of resentment. "I can't forget what was done to me, to us," Jessica insisted, her voice lower now, carrying a tremor that betrayed her battle to hold on to that anger. "You think speaking a few nice words is enough? You think that changes anything?" "Words have power," Sarah replied, her heart pounding in her chest. "They can break us apart or bring us together. We just have to meet each other halfway." The tension in the room felt like it could snap at any moment, but Sarah pressed on. "You've been hurt, and so have we. Instead of turning away from that pain, can we honor it together?" For a moment, Jessica stood still, as if weighing the proposal. Her heartbeat echoed in her ears, and the clamor around them faded. A flicker of hope ignited a chance for something deeper than anger. "Honor it?" Jessica finally whispered, her voice shaking. How do I do that? Can you really forgive the unforgivable?" "I believe we can," Sarah replied, her eyes shining. "Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, it means accepting our scars and choosing to move forward. Together." A soft murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, and the weight of collective breathing filled the space. Sarah looked at her father, whose expression had softened from dread to cautious optimism. He stepped closer to Jessica, vulnerability spilling over. "I know I can't change what happened. But I want to be part of the healing for everyone." Jessica shifted her gaze between both of them, uncertainty still lighting her features. "It's terrifying to think of letting go. What if I fail?" "Then we'll be right here together," Sarah answered, her voice strong. "Fear is hard, but facing it might just light the way for us all." Jessica's eyes sparkled with unshed tears. Perhaps, for the first time, the possibility of healing hovered in the air like a tender whisper. Could it be true? Could she step into the light of understanding, leaving the shadows of resentment behind? As the room held its breath, the small flickers of hope began to grow, fueled by courage and a collective yearning to find solace in shared truth. But then the door creaked open wider, revealing another presence that sent a shiver down Sarah's spine, a figure she hadn't expected. "Am I interrupting?" came a voice, full of gravity. Sarah's heart raced once more. Who else was here to unravel the fragile thread they were trying to weave? Would they be allies or adversaries? The question hung like a storm cloud, ready to burst wide open. The figure stepping through the doorway was unmistakable. It was Tom, the one person Jessica had hoped would never cross her path again. The whispers in the crowd turned into gasps, a whirlwind of emotions spiraling around the room. Tom had been a part of the past that haunted them all, a part that Jessica had worked tirelessly to bury. "Tom, what are you doing here?" Jessica's voice shook with disbelief, turning sharp like a blade. "I came because I heard there was something I needed to see," he replied, his tone calm but his gaze piercing. There was an air about him that commanded attention, drawing the eyes of the crowd. Joshua, Sarah's father, stiffened. The room recoiled slightly, the tension spiking anew as an old wound threatened to bleed again. After all this time? Jessica asked, her voice rising with indignation. You think you can just waltz back in and make everything okay? Tom took a step forward, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. I didn't come here to upset anyone. I came because I needed to apologize. For everything. Jessica shook her head, disbelief mixing with the flicker of something else, a confusion. An apology? From you? Sure, it sounds hollow. And I get it if you can't accept it, Tom said, eyeing Jessica with sincerity. But I've spent years trying to understand what happened and why I did what I did. I see now how my actions contributed not just to your pain but to this entire community's suffering. Sarah watched the exchange, her heart pounding. The air crackled with intensity, blending hope and dread. Could Tom's words, spoken so long after the damage was done, create the bridge they all needed? It's not enough to just say sorry, Tom. You broke things. Lives. Trust. How can you stand there and act like it changes anything? Jessica's voice came out strong, but there was a tremor beneath the anger. Tom lowered his gaze, as if weighted by regret. I know nothing can take back the years or heal the wounds overnight. But I want to help, he said, the determination in his eyes shining through the storm of emotions. I've changed. I want to be part of this community's rebuilding. I can't ask you to forgive me, but I want to do my part. The crowd buzzed with murmurs. Some nodded cautiously while others remained unsure. The siblings exchanged glances. Should they trust him again? Jessica's breath came in short gasps. How do I know this isn't just another act? What can you do that truly makes a difference? I want to volunteer my time, Tom replied earnestly. I want to support the programs that help victims. Not just with money, but with my actions, my hands, my heart. I can't undo the past, but I can be a part of a better future. Silent disbelief washed over Jessica as she processed his words. She looked at Sarah, searching for guidance. Sarah's eyes glinted with hope and caution, mirroring the storm brewing inside Jessica. Your actions will speak louder than words, Sarah finally said softly, her voice steady. If you're genuine, show us. But know that trust takes time. We're not just going to welcome you back with open arms. Tom nodded, his expression reflecting the weight of that truth. As he took a step back, hoping to lighten the mounting tension, a stray thought crossed Sarah's mind. Could this truly be a turning point? A chance for redemption, not just for Tom, but for everyone involved? Collectively, they felt the air shift, potential lingering on the tip of their tongues. But where there is light, shadows still lingered. What other truths hung silently in the balance, waiting to be unleashed? Is this what healing looks like? Jessica whispered into the growing silence, uncertainty tinged with curiosity. And as the lights flickered above, an unshakable sense of change lingered. What else awaited them in the darkness ahead? The room vibrated with tension, every heartbeat caught in the moments that followed Tom's bold declaration. Jessica struggled to process his offer. She glanced around, scanning the faces of the community she cared for, those who had endured the aftermath of Tom's actions. They were shadows of their former selves, each carrying burdens shaped by pain and distrust. Joshua's brow furrowed, his clenched fists a testament to his uncertainty. How can we trust you, Tom? You walked away when we needed you the most. What makes you think this time is different? His voice trembled, a light cracking through the hardened shell of skepticism. I know, Tom replied, voice steady but soft. I wouldn't trust me either. But, I want to understand your pain. I want to feel what you felt. He paused, letting the importance of his words sink in. I've spent years in therapy, working through my issues. It's time I faced the consequences of my past. Jessica felt the heat rising in her chest. The anger was a constant companion, woven through years of hurt. And you think years of therapy make up for years of suffering? Her voice caught, revealing the vulnerability simmering beneath her defenses. Maybe not, Tom conceded, his voice even. But I can't begin to change anything without first facing what I did. I want to stand with you, not against you. Sarah, always the calm anchor, stepped forward. It's easy to say those words, action is what matters. If you really want to help, how will you start? Her question hung in the air, a challenge as much as a plea for hope. I've reached out to organizations that support victims and their families. I can commit my time, my resources, whatever it takes to rebuild trust in this community. Whispers spread through the crowd. Some were curious, others still locked in skepticism. Jessica caught a whisper of hope in Sarah's soft eyes, but her own heart was still in turmoil. They wanted to believe, but could they really take this leap? Show us, Jessica said finally, resolute. Words are just that, words. If you mean what you say, be consistent. Prove it. Tom nodded, gratitude etched across his features. I will. Give me a chance to demonstrate that I mean it. As he stepped back, an unexpected silence enveloped the room. It was heavy with anticipation yet laced with uncertainty. Tom's gaze swept over the audience, then landed on Jessica once more, a moment of shared understanding passing between them, their eyes locked, the air thick with unspoken complexities. Healing isn't a straight line, Jessica finally said, almost to herself. It's messy and uncertain. But in that chaos, something flickered, an ember of possibility. Could this tenuous moment of connection be the first step towards something greater? Just then, the sharp ring of a phone broke through the charged atmosphere. An unfamiliar face stood at the back of the room, looking panicked as they answered. There's been an incident, the unfamiliar voice said, eyes darting nervously. You need to come now. The weight of impending news pressed like a storm cloud as the crowd shifted, anxious murmurs flooding back. Tom's face paled, and Jessica could feel her heart racing again, this time not from anger, but sheer confusion about what lay ahead. What had happened now? What depth of darkness still loomed over them, waiting to be uncovered? The fear gripped her tightly, and she secretly wondered, could they face this together, or would this be the thing that tore them apart once more? The room crackled with tension as the unknown figure's urgent tone reverberated. There's been an incident. You need to come now. Panic rippled through the crowd. The warmth of connection moments ago evaporated into icy uncertainty. Sarah felt her heart race as instinct kicked in. What happened? She asked, stepping forward anxiously. The newcomer looked around, every eye on him. He hesitated, swallowing hard. There was a fire at the old community center. People are trapped inside. Gasps echoed through the crowd. The weight of dread descended fast and heavy. Jessica's heart raced with immediate fear. We need to go. Right now. She urged, her voice fierce. Sarah. Lydia called out, grabbing her hand. We can't just stand here. Let us move. Sarah exclaimed, rallying everyone around her like a beacon of hope. Stay together. We'll get through this, I promise. As they rushed toward the exit, her thoughts dashed back to the new connections they had just started to forge. Would this fire take away everything they had worked for? The darkness of the past reared its head again, a nightmare threatening to swallow what little light they found. Dad. Sarah called, spotting him among the chaos. We need you. Her father, caught in the storm of fleeing neighbors, looked dazed for a moment. Then, her plea broke through. He nodded firmly as he moved toward her, determination replacing his earlier uncertainty. Together they hurried down the streets. The glow of flames danced ominously against the dark sky, casting distorted shadows that amplified their fears. Each step felt like a collective heartbeat pulsing, racing toward an unknown fate. When they reached the community center, the sight was devastating. Firefighters battled the blaze, their hoses arching like tentacles, spraying life where despair threatened to reign. Sarah's heart sank as she searched for familiar faces among the crowd gathered behind the emergency tape. Strangers cried out for loved ones while panic gripped the air like an unwelcome blanket. Hold on. The chief of the fire department shouted, trying to calm onlookers. We're doing everything we can. Jessica, feeling the heat seep into her bones, turned to Sarah. What if they don't make it out? Tears brimmed in Sarah's eyes, but she grasped Jessica's hand firmly. We can't think that way. We have to believe. Suddenly, from the chaos of the thrumming fire, a voice pierced through the din. Help me. It was Lydia. Caught near the entrance, fear clear in her eyes. I can't get out. Lydia. Sarah screamed. The sharp reality of the moment cut through Sarah like a knife. Without thinking, she bolted toward the flames, fire licking at her heels. Her heart pounded as her instincts took over. I'm coming. Sarah, stop. Her father shouted, trying to pull her back. But she couldn't stop, not now. Fueled by sheer determination, she escaped the grasp of reason and pushed past a fireman blocking the entrance. The heat seared her skin as she forced her way through the smoke-filled hallway. Each breath tasted like embers and dread, but every thought was for Lydia. Where are you? Over here. Lydia's voice trembled like fragile glass, but it anchored Sarah's heart. In moments, Sarah rounded the corner and, through the thick haze, she saw her friend crouched by a fallen beam. Desperation surged through her. She rushed forward, clearing debris and shielding Lydia with her own body. Get up. She urged, her voice fierce. We have to go. Now. With her help, Lydia scrambled to her feet, fear giving way to the instinct to survive. Together, they stumbled back toward the exit, fire swirling behind them like a malevolent spirit but only fueling their resolve. As they made it out, the cool night air hit them with a rush of relief. The firefighters moved quickly to pull them away from danger, leading them to safety just beyond the chaos. The crowd erupted in cheers when Sarah and Lydia emerged. People hugged one another, some weeping tears of joy, while others gripped each other closely in silent gratitude. As they huddled together, Sarah felt a powerful surge of clarity wash over her. We can take action, she thought feverishly. This isn't the end. It's just the beginning. Turning to the town, she spotted her father and Jessica nearby, the weight of their troubled past beginning to lift in the heat of the moment. They were not broken anymore. This was their chance to step together into the light. Listen, everyone. Sarah shouted, the determination blazing in her chest. Today, we witnessed our strength. Together, we saved lives. But together, we can thrive. Let's rebuild our community, starting right here, starting now. The echoes of her words transformed the shock of the fire into a current of intense hope. Hands clasped, eyes shone bright with renewed purpose, everyone nodding in fierce agreement. Even Jessica took a step toward the front, her heart crackling with the weight of her own resolution. We can do this together. She affirmed, her voice clear. We have to create a future where we support each other. As the flames behind them flickered out, extinguishing the remnants of the past, Sarah realized how far they had come. All those who had been woven into her journey were here, ready to stand strong. We've faced so much, Sarah urged, gazing at the familiar faces who had rallied around her since the beginning. Now, let's rise above our struggles. Let us build a future, despite everything. And through the silence, beneath the stars shimmering overhead, a chorus rang out, yes, yes, yes. That night, Sarah stood resolute, no longer burdened by the weight of judgment or the fear of the past. She was a warrior in a community reborn, every heart ignited with hope and a promise to rise again. Together, they transformed the very fabric of their lives, but now was the time for you to step forward too. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.